Hello, everyone. Welcome to part 4 of... I cannot believe we're doing part 4. This was not meant to happen. Part 3 was supposed to be the final for this debate, but there was just an overwhelming amount of comments and questions, and really just... I really feel like... not answering those would be doing a disservice to the whole debate. I would love to go through some of the main points that we probably didn't cover well enough, or probably didn't convey well enough. And I want to go through them. Each person has their own points they want to probably reiterate or probably talk about. There's really no structure like last time. There's going to be a lot of bickering. You guys know how it is. It is a debate, but it's all done with love and with respect to one another. So
and I just want to add
not that part, but you know.
Yeah, what's up?
All right. I was going to say that the whole point, like the guys need to remember, the whole point of this was that it was meant to be kind of chaotic.
Yeah.
It was meant to be a lot of like very diverse, opposite opinions of each other. That was the whole point of starting the discussion. Behind it. Obviously, it can get a bit out of hand, but for the most part, it was done by design.
Yeah, like that's why I invited them. We knew that we were all going to disagree and it would be a debate. That's why I labeled it a debate. It's a debate. It's not just like a regular discussion. And that's why I wanted... Go ahead.
The point of this one is to be hopefully a bit more civil and a bit more structured, but it might turn chaotic a bit.
Doubt it, but that's honestly...
thanks to Prem,
again, that's why...
can hold his own.
That's why I wanted this on my channel, though, because it's a different change of pace from my channel. But we do have new faces here. It is not just me, Premy, and TWIP. We also have David the Lurker joining us today. Hello, David.
Oh, hello. That's me. I'm David.
We also have Evan from Tails channel here. Hello, Evan.
Hey, Opal says hi too. She's barking right now.
That's awesome. Again. And we also have Shani Classic Knack fan in the call. Hello.
Hey guys.
And the reason why I decided to bring some more voices in here is because those three are actually going to be acting as moderators. I brought them in because they know.
Just for me and TWIP.
No, for me as well.
Already put it in.
No, here's the thing.
We're not bored.
Prem's already putting in.
Here's the reason why I brought them in.
Yet.
I brought them in because, to me, based off of the extent I know, they seem like the most knowledgeable people with everything in the series beyond just opinions.
Stop.
Shut up, Evan.
Maybe not Evan, but yeah.
So I decided to bring them in. We're going to be doing our discussion like usual, but if there's a point where they know for a fact we probably have something wrong, or if they know more knowledge than us, they're going to jump in, or if they just have their own opinions, they'll jump in. And also, I think more voices is not a bad thing for this, so I hope you guys enjoy that. With that said, I'm just going to kick it off. Going to a lot of the responses I got in part 3, one of the main things I've gotten a lot of criticisms, to be fair, which I can't blame them too much, was it gave a lot of people had the impression that I was being very apologetic towards Sonic Team, that I would constantly use Sega as a scapegoat to not blame Sonic Team. The thing is, I know, Prem. Yeah, the thing is that
Fuck off.
When I was watching that video and I was looking at it from the perspective of the audience, I could definitely see how you guys could see that, because a lot of the points we brought up in that video weren't really the points where I couldn't then where I do blame Sonic Team. Some things I do blame Sonic Team is purely game mechanics, the level design, storytelling, the overall quality of the games. That is Sonic Team, and there's no excuse for that. Obviously, I've definitely criticized them in the past before. I've criticized them now. Sonic Team is not perfect, not nearly as perfect. The point I want to bring up, though, is the points we were talking about in that video, specifically a lot of the stuff when we're talking about stuff behind the scenes, like schedules, the game coming out early, being rush production, certain decisions they made with gimmicks. I feel stuff beyond that is not solely on Sonic Team, and I feel like that's kind of, common sense. Corporate meddles in everything. Every game company is a business. Sega is a business, and they want to make sure that the branches they have, hence Sonic Team, is following and abiding by what they set in place. There is a lot of mandates that Sega puts down, and that's why I think when there's a lot of gimmicks that are thrown into Sonic that don't really make sense, I feel like it goes beyond just Sonic Team. So I hope that's not like, I hope I didn't come off as like I'm just trying to simp over Sonic Team, because that's definitely not the case. Sonic Team has done just a bunch of mistakes in the past, and they still do to this day. They're definitely not anywhere near perfect or out of my reach. I feel like we just need to talk about more of the points that they did do wrong, and I would talk about them. So that's purely what it is. Any comments about that?
With the direction thing,
Yes, sir.
of like the gimmicks and stuff. It's true to a degree where like Sega would probably be like, Sonic Team, don't do another Boost game, do something different. But at the end of the day, it's still Sonic Team who decides on what is different, and they develop the gameplay style. So Sonic Lost World, for example, was a game that was quite divisive. I would pin that on Sonic Team and not Sega, because like even if they were told not to do Boost, they could have done anything else.
I know
Can
exactly
I
what.
just put the brakes on this like right now, because I think we'll be able to move to the next step. If I say this, it's gonna be really short, I promise. Why does it matter whose fault it is?
Exactly, it really doesn't.
Because I was gonna bring up the point where, because it was one of the parts I was saying that Sonic Team were at fault for 06, and then I think Sam and TWIP were like, but it's Sega who forced them to rush it, and I was like, well, Sonic Team is still a part of Sega. At one point, they were making games under the name of Sega Studios, which we were calling Sonic Team. So regardless of whether it was Sonic Team or Sega, there is a problem there that needs to be worked out, and we can pin the Sonic Team versus Sega ping pong ball all we want, but at the end of the day, they have shit that they need to fix.
But I think
So on that one, because I remember hearing about that, that is essentially like saying, like right now, how we have people blaming PR for not throwing out an announcement when they don't really have a say in that.
Yeah.
So it's subjective. There's a lot of stuff we don't know that goes on behind closed doors and what comes on the forefront. It's very true. Sonic Team does have input on things, and Iizuka and his team is but a cog in the scheme of things. And there is a lot of stuff because micromanaging is something that a corporation will do sometimes, where there's a lot of people putting their hands in something that they have no business putting their hands in. So it's not like Iizuka can sometimes just wake up and say, oh, I want to make a Sonic game. There's still a lot of stuff happening. And we've heard reports of stuff like that where we've seen something that didn't kind of mix into the games, like Classic and Forces. And then we're finding out later, supposedly, that wasn't a decision from Sonic Team, that may have been, oh, we don't have faith in this. Oh, but Classic did really good in Generation, so you need to find a way to incorporate. It almost becomes this thing where it's like Iizuka wants to make, it's time for Iizuka to make a Sonic game, but you need to put this in the game, this in the game, and this in the game. Okay, go do your thing. And I'm not saying that Sonic Team should not be excused from a lot of things, because there is some stuff. We were just talking about that too not too long ago, where I do believe the Wisps was Iizuka's idea, and the returning factor of the Wisps was Iizuka's idea. But there's always an outside scheme to a lot of stuff too. In the case of Sonic 06, there's many factors to it. Supposedly a more recent build got lost. Corporate rushed it, but that's corporate forcing Sonic Team. That's not Sonic Team's fault on the rush thing. Iizuka didn't just say, okay, yeah, just rush it. That was corporate saying, you need to get this out by this time because this is where we're going to sell more. Just do it. And that's your boss.
But there's also a question there. There's also a question. I want to say this.
Yeah.
And obviously, people are going to say you love 06, yada, yada, yada. But let's just go, let's remove all bias here, right? If they have a deadline for a game that they would have known in advance, right, when they started developing the game, and you have a game that, frankly, has the most playstyles of any Sonic game, wouldn't you be able to manage your ambition relative to the deadline that you've gotten, right? At the same time, yes, Sega should have given them the extension because their reputation's on the line, but shouldn't Sonic Team have been aware and said, we have this deadline, can we finish all of these things in one development cycle? And sure, they couldn't have factored in maybe they could have actually factored in the Secret Rings fiasco. Maybe there should have never been a Secret Rings. That's probably on Sega's part. But there's so many elements to it, and I feel like Sonic Team is still partly to blame for that. Sega's probably more to blame for the 06 thing, because there shouldn't have been a Secret Rings until 06 was done. They were doing too much things. They split the team. Naka probably left for probably Sega doing something wrong to him. I don't know.
Honestly, I'm not about pinning blame on anyone. I just want the problems fixed. So if I'm ever criticizing anyone as a whole,
I'm just saying in the answer, in the scheme of don't blame the game, blame Sonic Team, or like even though Sonic Team is part of Sega, they still should be blamed. That there's outside factors that you must take in account at the end. You can't just point a finger at like Iizuka, because I see that to less extent now, thank God. But like back then, there was a lot of fire Iizuka.
I think. Do you know what it is? Do you know what it is? Izuka has gone on record saying has gone on record saying certain things that he wants for the series. That the way he describes certain things, it doesn't sound like it's corporate. Like when he talks about the Wisp being a staple in the franchise, that doesn't sound corporate at all. You know, because it feels like he himself wants certain things. He's just like Nakamura as well with the Dash Nakamania.
Cannot sound corporate.
Yeah, no, that's
Izuka's face. He needs to be essentially your human element, just like how Aaron and the PR team are. That's your human
that's how like Reggie was for Nintendo. Like that's the whole. You can't sound corporate, otherwise you're not going to get that trust.
I should jump in real quick.
Company.
A lot of people sent me the Wisp thing, and you were right, Prem, about that. Like that is what Izuka said about the Wisps. And I'll agree. I don't think the Wisps should be a staple in the series. I feel like they had their run, and we already have a staple. We have, I think Shane mentioned, we have the emeralds, we have the elemental shields. We don't need other power-ups
playable characters as
in the series.
I don't mind the Wisps
but
being
honestly,
a staple.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I just want them to fit well narratively, which they didn't in Lost World, and I want them to fit with Sonic's design. And I actually want to transition into the gimmicks part of Sonic, because that was another thing I got a bit of flack for, was saying that I think Sonic with a sword was a dumb idea, and also thinking the concept of the Hedgehog was also a dumb idea. The main argument people had was, okay, well, Mario gets all these gimmicks and no one blinks an eye, but when it's Sonic, we always have a problem with it because Sonic has to be this certain way. The reason why I feel like the gimmicks in Sonic have not up to this point worked as well is because a lot of the gimmicks they don't make sense with the world of Sonic. Why? My question is, why does Sonic need a sword? He already.
If we're gonna talk about like narratively, I think they gave a perfectly good story or backstory to like something like the Hedgehog, for example. I think if you're gonna have a gimmick, the story is going to revolve some way around it, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that as long as the gimmick is executed well. You know.
I disagree. I disagree that the Wisps need to always be narratively shoved into the story in order for them to be there, because at the end of the day they are just power-ups. I've got my own problems with the Wisps themselves and how they kind of separate Sonic's abilities, but I don't think they need to be explained every time.
That's what I'm not saying. That's explained every time, but I mean the last time we did see them in their own game was they went back to their own world. They were finally free. But now they're still in capsules and Sonic Forces. But that's honestly not a big deal. I can look like, again, I'm not into Sonic for the story. I don't care. I just want to make sure that the power-ups fit around the gameplay and that it works well. And again, that's why I think like if Sonic had a gimmick where he throws a ring, that makes sense. That feels believable. Giving Sonic a sword feels very forced and kind of more like something we don't necessarily need, because again, his main attack is spinning into a ball and cutting enemies in half already, and he goes at blisteringly high speeds. I'm not saying it's like the worst idea in the world. I really don't. I just want to clarify my point as to why I think Sonic with a sword is a dumb idea, or Sonic turning into the Hedgehog is a dumb idea. It just doesn't feel like the gimmick itself just doesn't make sense. It feels more like a handicap than a gimmick from Sonic's main abilities. If we had a gimmick that, again, didn't feel like it came out of left field and didn't feel totally random, and it felt like an extension of what Sonic can already do, hence like Mario with his cap, throwing it and it being like an extra jump for him, that makes sense. If Sonic had abilities like that.
I get that, but that's why it's a spin-off.
Exactly.
Such as Mario Kart, Mario Sports.
This is what I think. I think Sonic has a very limited moveset. Let's be real. He runs, he jumps. They added the spin dash. They added wall jump. They add things over time. I feel like you can't just do the same thing for 30 years and not have it get boring.
I don't think they have.
Elements is what keeps the franchise, interesting. Like even with Mario, like all these power ups, like the wing cap or the things he was doing with Cappy, like or Flood or whatever. It's like they have to experiment, otherwise it becomes stale.
Yes, but
it's not the same thing.
I would agree with Premy. I think there's always something that needs to be new to make a game feel new, like worth buying, and it's not the same thing. I think what happened around Colors Unleashed all that time, and yes, it's a large time period. However, that was when Sonic Team was still reeling from the criticism of not wanting multiple playable characters. People were like, no, only make it Sonic, blah, blah, blah. So they were like, well, I guess we can't make new interesting characters with unique backstories and unique gameplay mechanics like Silver. So now we have to make Sonic interesting by extension. So they add things like the Wisps to make his gameplay more interesting, like Premy was saying, or the Werehog to make him more interesting. They're trying to answer both criticisms, and I think that's hurting them, which ties into Pillars of Sonic, my own discussion, shameless plug. I think it's good. I think it's good for the series to be experimental. I agree with Premy.
Well, I also wonder if like when it comes to the things they add to Mario and the things they've added to Sonic, when it comes to like the hat, the Cappy, even Flood, although there were quite a number of dissenters who were not happy with Flood and what it added to Mario. When it comes to here's Unleashed and here's the Werehog, it's not we're extrapolating what Sonic is and we're doing something different. It's hey, God of War is popular, we threw it into Sonic. Yeah. So there's a disassociation there that doesn't happen with Mario. And like the spin-offs can get away with it in Mario because it's like, we're saying outright, this is kart, this is sports, this is whatever. And I mean, sometimes it works with Sonic and sometimes it doesn't, and that might just be the perception of what Sonic is as a character as opposed to what Mario is. But if you are doing because Unleashed is a mainline game, sure, it's Black Knight is meant to be a spin-off as part of the storybook games, but I mean it's still presented but I mean Unleashed was presented as here is the next Sonic game, this is what's coming after 06. For a lot of people, they try to look at that game as an apology, even if really they started working on Unleashed before Sonic 06 was done, because that's just how development cycles work. When they're finishing up one game, they are thinking about the other, if they're trying to make yearly, bi-yearly releases. But I think it is just there's that disconnect where if it was something that eventually led up to that, where we added a new move, like we've added things to the shoes, or we're doing things where Sonic is throwing a ring, like if Shadow wasn't running around with a gun, but it was something that seemed more Sonic-y, for lack of a better word, it might have felt better as a whole, as opposed to kids like guns, first-person shooters are here, let's just give Shadow a gun, but it has to be third-person anyway. There was just
Shadow like be subject to the spin-off thing as well.
Right. Well, I mean, Shadow's technically a spin-off, but it's also a sequel.
It is a mainline game.
It's presented as a mainline game because Heroes ends on a cliffhanger, saying what happens next, and Shadow answers that.
Well, I mean, I feel like just because it continues story-wise doesn't exactly mean that it's mainline from a gameplay standpoint. It is a Sonic game, but you can't play
I would class Shadow as a spin-off.
It's marketed. It could be then, but it is marketed as the next Sonic game.
Right. I mean,
of course they would do that to bring in Sonic fans, but it's very clear that the formula is different here, like from a gameplay standpoint.
Well, actually,
Not
to be
that
fair,
far
it has
different.
very much in similar with Sonic Heroes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Heroes has one team with missions. Shadow, except for one path, everything is essentially missions.
In the end, you have Shadow introduced from marketing standpoints, and from Sega's standpoint, it is the next entry to the series, and then your handhelds are your spin-offs during those times. But yeah, right. Shadow is introduced as a mainline game. It's a little strange, but right. Also at the time, Shadow is a very popular character.
It's the only reason he came back to life.
Yeah,
he sold shirts.
Yeah, I
David,
always.
You were about to say something.
Right. I was just going to say, like, Shadow the Hedgehog, the game, was introduced. Like, it was when Sonic had, what was it, the Walk of Game or Game of whatever that pseudo Hollywood stars video game thing was. They were like, oh yeah, Sonic is one of the inaugural parts of it. and they put together a video. Here's celebrating Sonic. By the way, next Sonic is Shadow. Like they revealed it as here's the next installment. I think it was only later that they pulled back and tried to make it seem like a spin-off because the reception wasn't as great as they wanted, even though the game still did sell. Like there are definitely fans of it. It was a success financially.
Shadow was massively popular. One of the things that I've always said that I'll never understand is when Sonic Adventure 2 first came out, I did not like Shadow. I thought he was way too edgy, and I also didn't think there needed to be another Hedgehog character. But Shadow was such a product of his time because it matches the vibe of like the 2000s. But I will never understand why Shadow continued its popularity. But people really love Shadow, so it makes sense to make its own Shadow game. And then throw it as a mainline game because during that time, like kids really love that character.
Yeah, I assume they didn't want to market it as a spin-off because they didn't want to lose in sales. So by promoting it as a mainline game, they could lure in the Sonic fans and get them there.
Exactly.
But because the formula was different and people were not receiving it well, it was kind of like, they're not receiving it as well. Let's go back to where it was supposed to be, which is a spin-off. So it's like a corporate.
Where like as the tide changes, the reception of it gets very poor, and much like they probably did with Sonic 4 and all those, they went, just kidding.
Yeah.
And it's like but it's true. Like that game is it's a really interesting look because you come into it because you're a Sonic fan. It brings in new people because it's edgy and it's got this like gun mechanic into it, and it's a darker storyline, and it's got like multiple like story elements to it, and it branches off into different endings. Like it had a lot of effort put into it. It was one of those.
I feel like it's fair to judge it as a game. I just don't feel like it's fair to judge it based on how similar it is in general to Sonic, and to say that because it's different is the only reason why it's flawed in a sense.
But I mean, you could say that the differences are comparable to like the different characters in Adventure or even the Werehog and Unleashed, where it's like there is the Sonic blueprint, but we're adding things, so you can still run around and homing attack and do Sonic-y things as Shadow. It's just, we've added in the extra thing. So it's not as far removed as one might want it to be if they're not a fan of the game, but are a fan of Sonic as a whole.
Yeah, and again, this all leads back to the gimmicks. This all leads back to the gimmicks as to why we're talking about this. Another thing I actually wanted to bring up, because I feel like we did talk pretty well about the gimmicks here, the backwards compatibility thing. There was it's emulated is essentially what I found.
I have something I want to say.
Yeah, what's up?
All right.
Just like in a court of law, we have innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah.
Right.
Now I know that Sega or Sonic team may not be the most competent 100% of the time, but I don't think it's plausible for anyone to say they have lost the source code until proven otherwise. We have to assume that they have not just deleted years worth of code until there's evidence to suggest that they have. Now, I've been hearing the Unleashed has lost the source code urban legend for years, and I finally found the one source that one person linked to that was supposed to prove it. And then when I dug into that source, and I made a video on this, did Sega lose the source code for Unleashed? When I dug into that source, they were talking about arcade machines from the 80s and 90s.
Yeah,
and
I remember that too because I made a comment.
Yeah, right. so it's like there is literally zero evidence to suggest they lost the source code.
But how much evidence is there to say that they haven't lost it?
Okay,
just ignore my point. I just said.
Okay. So this is the one I wanted to talk about. Neither of you can say anything.
Yeah,
none of us.
I'll take that. I'll take that
because there's two sides of this coin. And I think David can also put in on his thing because he's part of Retro, and Retro catalogs the history of like Sega stuff and Sonic stuff. For me personally, there is evidence that Sega is not very good at keeping their history. A lot of times there is stuff that says that they've lost source codes to things, and presumably there's a lot of Saturn stuff that's lost. Who knows? But at the same time, yeah, we don't know, because Sega has also sat on a lot of stuff, and they have it, they just never use it. So unless we are there in the building and somebody goes oops and we hear it, we don't know. Like we don't know if they legitimately
we can't assume
lost
the
it.
worst simply because we don't know.
Okay,
Though.
well,
SA2 came out in 2001,
we can't
and then they put it on.
Well, can I bring this up? Well, can I bring this up?
I mean, it was how many years after SA2 Battle came out before we actually got a PC port for that game? I remember because that was like my whole growing up years. SA2 was not on PC, and it bothered me because my Dreamcast lens messed up, so I couldn't play it for a long time. Like for years.
Well,
I didn't play SA2.
Yeah.
Let me bring this up real quick.
I think either way, it comes back. I think it's just bad management then, if that's the case. Either they've lost the source code, which is bad management, or they didn't use the Generations engine, Unleashed engine, whatever, to build on top of for Sonic Forces, whether if that's close to Hedgehog Engine 2, wasn't compatible with it, or whatever.
Going back and using another engine is a totally different story, because it's based upon like time and resources, and a lot of it's showing that they're using the Lost World engine, and they probably used it because their team was more familiar with it, and it might have been a little bit easier to use.
That's what I was going to bring up, because
a lot of people go, well, why don't they use Unleashed?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, if they were rushing to make a game, why don't they make and they wanted to make the Boost engine, why force an engine that isn't the Boost engine into a Boost engine rather than using the Boost engine you have? That's why I believe something did happen in that source code, whether they overwritten it or they lost it.
We just don't know what happened.
Yeah, so Team Sonic Racing reuses the engine for Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed, but it was a new team developing Team Sonic Racing. So your argument, Shani, could also be applied there. Well,
it's just a suggestion he has
with the old engine.
It's always outside stuff too. Supposedly we can't use the Unleashed engine anymore because Sega doesn't have that license, or Sega's license, or Hedgehog 2 and Havoc, and there's a thing that we have to push to use this instead.
So either way, it's bad management. At the end of the day, that's my final stance on it.
Sometimes you can say bad management, but hindsight is also 2020, that they don't know ahead of time that this is going to be a mess or whatnot. Yeah. My biggest complaint with the Hedgehog engine 2 is that they chose to use it, and they made Forces look the way it was. Because in my opinion, Hedgehog Engine 2, they should have made a game that looked like Unleashed. It should have been bright, colorful, pretty.
Yeah.
But they didn't. They chose a game that was dark and had red and brown as its main aesthetic.
You don't want a Sonic? You don't want a Sonic story about
the model of Sonic? It looks very undetailed in Forces.
I wouldn't say undetailed. I think it's just they're trying to make it look more like classic Sonic.
Yeah, and the lack of idle animation too.
Even classic Sonic in Generations look more detailed than all the characters in Forces have this it's like a missing layer of detail. If you compare the Unleashed model to the Forces model, even the 06 models. It's just, you look at even the results screen, just look at Sonic in Forces, it just feels like...
Well, yeah, Sonic doesn't even blink in Forces.
That's what it feels like.
I feel like that's more so not necessarily the engine, but more so them just rushing to get the game done. They didn't even do idle animations and stuff. What were you saying, David?
Yeah, that's a complete
an art style choice, though. I feel like it's an art style choice. They're choosing to make Sonic look...
I don't think they're choosing to make it hollow. I think we
could talk about Forces all day, couldn't we? We've probably talked about it for years already.
Oh, I know. The lack of idle animation betrays his entire character.
I wonder if the development of the
again.
What did you say?
So it's a game made by the same team who brought us games like Sonic Colors.
No, they had the same janitor.
Right. Okay.
I would be curious. Curious because you have Unleashed, and there's two developments for Unleashed that if I heard that right, where there's the Wii and the PS2, and then there's the HD versions. Mm-hmm. I would be curious if it's one conglomeration of the development for Forces, and thus we have the Switch, PS4, and Xbox One. And I'd be curious if maybe it doesn't look as detailed because of the aesthetic of the game, but also because it was also made for the Switch.
Yeah,
and then it's.
I mean, I don't know. The Switch, I think, is definitely more powerful than an Xbox 360, right? And if the models in Unleashed and even 06 have
Sort
more
of.
detail
With
on the skin,
Switch, there's a balance of things you have to do because you have to take into account its power, if it's docked, undocked, the battery life of it when it's docked. So there has to be this balance so that you're not developing a game that makes the Switch run its battery out in an hour. Like it's really weird, and I have to also say that it's subjective that I'm running off of, because I'm running off developments for like other handhelds and other games where the game has been compromised at one point because its sole focus was a handheld, or because its sole focus was for a lesser like powered machine. And it makes me wonder sometimes if that's what happened with Forces.
David, what were you going to say? Because sorry.
I've sort of lost track now, exactly. But
because I know you were trying to say something earlier.
I know.
How dare you, Shani?
It's me.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I'm pretty much like I agree with Shani and what he's saying, because So Unleashed, yes, 360 PS3. It is just focusing on the one. I mean, a lot of it does also come down to just art design, visual design as well, because you can make pretty things in lesser hardware. But if you have a small budget and you are stretched over a lot, like, you are going to cut corners because you really have no choice.
I believe it was that.
You need to get the game done. It's either you get the game done or you ask for an extension. You can't always get an extension. And even to rewind further back, sometimes it doesn't matter how carefully you've laid out your plans, where you're like, we're going to hit this milestone, then this one, and then the game will be done and it'll be perfect, because you don't know what'll happen. People could leave, people could get sick. Something, outside of everyone's control could happen, like what is currently going on in world. Doesn't matter. It's just things that you have, like, and you maybe don't even have a contingency plan because it didn't even occur to you that it was something you had to worry about. When 06 was developed, when it began, Sega probably didn't think at all that Yuji Naka would go, deuces, I'm leaving, I'm gonna make some games where I tap stuff. Like, it probably didn't occur to them at the time. And I
theory on that, but I'll say that later.
Well, I mean, it's just like things get compounded, and so for something like Forces, maybe they even were like, let's keep it constricted, because if we do try to optimize it for the Switch and make it look better, so that we can make things look just as nice on the PS4 or the Xbox One, if you run into something that causes a problem, then everything is going to get messed up. So it could be they were just playing it safe. So that's why it doesn't look as pretty as Unleashed does. It's all these little factors that could go on there.
Playing it safe, because even if you look at Crash Team Racing on the Switch, you can tell that it's visually inferior to the other versions, but it's still, if you look at the character models, they still look,
that game looks fantastic
than what I would
on
expect
the Switch.
in Forces. So I just feel like there's an element of just like, we don't want to try kind of thing.
Wow. That's a bold statement.
Well, it's not that they don't want to try.
I will never go out of my way to say that they didn't care or they.
Yeah, me neither. Holy shit.
No one.
That's their livelihoods at stake.
Yeah.
They have to put in their all.
Damn, Premi's got to say something now. Premy, what do you think?
Yeah, Prem, go.
Okay, let me say something. I don't think they're putting in their all. I don't believe that. I even just simply reading the development pages of like Sonic Adventure and the levels of things they did, like traveling around the world just for location scouting, and the kind of the passion, I can read it through paragraphs and through interviews, and then you look at something like Forces, and I don't believe they're trying as hard.
I don't know. Management. It goes back to management. Shani, is it true that Forces took 1 year? Is that being 100% confirmed? Like the game itself?
No. That's actually not 100%. That's not 100% confirmed. There's this whole thing running around that they took, that there was a 4-year development, and they took like 3 years on the
3 years for the engine. Yeah, because I've never seen.
There's also, and I can't remember the article, but then there's another article where I think it's Nakamura talking, and Nakamura says otherwise. Right. And Nakamura says that there was a
Patience
time.
Defense Squad is just PM bullshit.
Also, it couldn't have been 1 year, because the game was announced in July and it wasn't released 1 year exactly after we saw that trailer. So
yeah, no, but the
CGI trailer.
What I heard was that it started development around that CGI trailer. Is what
That's
what people
I've
keep saying.
heard too.
I don't buy it.
That there was barely even a game.
There is a 3 to 5 year plan that is laid out by like Sega, by any development, and things change around that plan. When that trailer comes out, they were probably already in the throes of Forces, like way into it, because there is other stuff that is supposedly getting revealed in other leaks and like discussions and like interviews where they're talking about like, oh well, when we were making the game it was going in this direction, but then they were like, no, we have to go in this direction, like things like that. That's not 3 years of an engine making.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because I've seen so much concept art and shit for that game, and I disagree with Prem. I think they really tried, at least in the conceptualization stage.
Right.
I think too.
That means they tried, right? I mean, that's art. You get artists to draw beautiful environments, and this is what the game could be.
But doesn't mean the game tried. Art. That's not just art. That's storytelling. It's trying to.
I think they had a nice idea. I think when it came down to execution, they could have tried harder.
No, but you see, when somebody sets out to make a piece of art, I don't think that they are going into it saying, I really want to create mediocrity. It could happen, but that's never their. I don't think it's anyone's intention to make a game that's mediocre.
It's their intention, but that's what they did.
No, if they're putting in their if they're putting in their all, but it doesn't come out right, that doesn't mean they didn't.
They didn't try.
All.
It just means
I understand that because
right. So
incompetent.
You can't just say outright, oh, they didn't try as hard as they could have.
The problem is,
I think they did. It's just the results weren't what they wanted. Because I mean, how many times has anyone in here made something and you're like putting in your all and you're like, oh man, this is
great shit. Exactly.
You're like, oh no, I've made it bad.
I remember talking to Iizuka, like in person, like not on a microphone, but like off stage, like face to face. And I remember talking to him about Forces, and it was during South by Southwest. And Iizuka talked about like, and you could tell like he's uncertain. He's making all these decisions for the game, and he wants people to like it, but he's uncertain. And like Sonic is a difficult IP to work with, especially with like new teams, because it's an IP that's been going on for how long, Lurker? Like almost 30 years, if not.
Yeah.
Well, Sonic?
And it's Sonic.
Yeah, we're 29.
And it's like it's so hard, especially with its divisive fan base. And I remember him saying like, I make this game in hopes that, you know, that like you will like it as a Sonic fan, that like new people will like it, and he wanted everyone to like it. That is not a statement from somebody who is just kind of like, you know, like
okay, we made a game. Let me clarify. I'm not trying to say that they don't care. Okay, when I was a kid, I've been making beats since like 1999. Okay, and it wasn't until I was like 18, which is like 2013, that my beats started to sound professional, like they could actually be on radio, for example. But when I was a kid, I would hear what's on the radio, and in my head I've got like this idea for this amazing beat, and I'm like, when I program this beat in the software, it's gonna sound amazing. But I just don't have the skill to do it, so it will never sound like how a professional would sound at that point. And that's because I was just not competent enough at the time. So they could have all the passion they want, but we saw the article, the forum post, where people that worked on games like Unleash the Generations were getting poached by Nintendo. I don't want to say poached, but they went to Nintendo and they're working on games like Odyssey and Zelda and things like that. And it's like, no matter how much passion you have for the series, Nakamura had passion when he was talking about dashing like a maniac. Iizuka has passion. I just don't think they fundamentally understand what we want anymore. Like, they just don't.
And that was never what we denied. We just denied that they didn't try.
I still don't think they tried 100%, but they did try.
This is an opinion that gets a lot of flack for me. I don't think Sonic fans know what they want anymore. I think there's a lot of stuff where we scream for things, and then when they implement something of that sort, we teeter back and go, we didn't want that. That's not what we want.
As a collective, we don't know what we want. But individually, there's a lot of people who know what they want. I can say right now,
individually, we are not viable.
Now, hold on.
Collectively, we are.
Give yourself more credit, Shani. I think a few people do know exactly what they want.
Look, man, I have said I want a knack in a game. How many games have Knack been in?
Yeah, but
one sort of.
Oh my god.
Oh my.
Knack makes me laugh so much.
Now
But
Evan,
the thing is, there's two elements. If we were to split every Sonic game down to two elements, there is the idea, as in the general premise of what they want the game to be, and there's the execution of that idea. Now, we have proven through games like Mania, through games like Generations, that if the execution is top notch, the idea may not be exactly what you wanted, but you will still go with it because the execution was top notch. Like, for example, and also if someone really is a fan of an idea, they may also excuse imperfections in execution. For example, I can excuse imperfections in the execution of 06 because I really like the idea and the premise of what they were going for from a gameplay standpoint, right? I don't like the premise of Colors. I still think the game was executed fairly, but I don't like the general premise of what it was going for.
But then
Mania is a well executed game, but I'm not the biggest classic fan. I still enjoyed it. I still bought the vinyls, the collector's edition, the plus DLC.
Right.
And I think the problem right now is that they can't execute anything they want to execute. So it doesn't even matter if it's a classic game or it's an adventure game or it's a boost game or it's Lost World or it's Boom. It just feels like everything they do, they just don't execute properly anymore.
Its execution is definitely going to fall into a category of what they can and can't do, what they're allowed to do. David was actually just talking about something about what fans wanted when we talked about like nostalgia stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, because I would.
Yeah.
Wait, are you like something we had just talked about, or do you just?
Yeah, when we were talking about when fans would like ask for something, but then Sonic Team would implement it, and then fans would be like, "No, that's nostalgia pandering."
Oh, there's that bit, yeah. But I guess it was all. I mean, also in general, like if you look at the history of Sonic and the history of what Sonic fans have asked for, it does. There was for a fair amount of time a lot of give and take where it seemed like Sonic Team was listening maybe a bit too much, and it infected whatever they were trying to do, and then people would react. Yeah. I think about, like, you get Sonic Adventure, and for the most, like, it's almost universally loved by Sonic fans and critics, and everyone's super into it, but then people start going, well, I kind of, I didn't like the adventure feels. It took up too much time. Oh, I don't know why Big's there. Like, I don't know, like Amy, I'm not sure what's good. Like, the people were complaining. So it's like, okay, we've restructured it. Here's Sonic Adventure 2. No adventure fields. It's just running and treasure hunting and shooting. It's the 3 playstyles you love the most. It's all here. Enjoy it. And then people are like, oh, wow, here's the game. Wait, I mean, now we're forced to be certain characters. We can't just choose who we want to be. And maybe like the treasure hunting isn't as good. And, maybe I kind of miss some of the other. So it's like, okay.
It's also different people speaking, though. People are always quiet when they get what they want. Yeah, people that aren't getting what they want allowed.
Like, here's the fandom where they listen to the fandom as a whole, and then they try to appease the naysayers. But then more naysayers come in, and sometimes it is the same people, because what it is, like, I know people who said, oh, I don't like Adventure 2 as much as Adventure. I kind of wish they would scale things back and even make it more classic, because at that point, Sonic's only 10 years old. Most fans are still like, they grew up on the classic games. So then you get Heroes, which tries to evoke the aesthetic of the classics more than the previous 2 games.
And instead becomes the greatest game ever made, but
But then there are the people who were like, I want it to be more classic. They get Heroes and say, this isn't what I meant. This is bad, actually.
Yeah, I mean, Heroes, I want to speak on that.
But it is the same people, not necessarily different people.
Yeah, I want to speak on Heroes. I think Heroes is actually, in certain ways, closer to the classics than the adventure games. Not in all ways, not in control, but in the structure and the aesthetic, I think it's very Sonic 2-esque. In that it's more linear.
Who the hell is denying that? I've never heard a single person never say that.
People say that Heroes isn't like the classics. I've heard it before.
Yeah.
I've never
yeah.
heard that argument in my entire
No,
life.
Heroes
Well,
is
then
definitely
better is TWIP. I'm talking. Okay?
in the world building. Heroes definitely did return to form in terms of the world, the
Definitely.
universe of Sonic. But I do want to take charge real quick of this conversation because I feel like we did. We started with my points, but
Can I say one more thing? Can I say one more thing?
Oh
on
yeah,
that?
I was just gonna say that my points are like that. You guys covered all my points. So if when you and TWIP want to go into your bullet points, feel free.
Okay. So I just want to say one more thing. It's like, so with the whole classic fans saying things about Adventure and they got Heroes, I feel like Sega listened, but again, execution. They took some elements of the classics, but it was not in any shape or form a classic Sonic game. They took the environments, the structure, and the more like the lack of story and things like that. But in the fundamental, is this a classic Sonic game? Oh. So it's like they can then go, but we listened to you and you know you didn't like it, so that's your fault kind of thing. But if you look at it, it reminds me of, I think this was Fairly Odd Parents this happened, but there was like a genie or in a TV show or something like that.
Yeah.
And the genie said you can have 3 wishes, and someone would wish for something, and this guy will take something. The genie will take something so very literally, and then give you that exact thing, and he'll do it in like a weirdly stupid way and say, but this is what you asked for. So if I say I want $1 million right now, and I say that to the genie, and the genie brings over 50 trucks of pennies. But you said you wanted $1 million. I gave you that. You can't complain. And it's like,
that brings me to my suggestion of that.
I mean,
is
you can
that
roll them.
the only compromise is that people have to watch how they criticize things. I think my biggest thing. My biggest issue with the criticism of Forces was when they showed the shadow thing. People were going, I waited 13 years for this. That was the common thing I saw. I waited 13 years for this. What did you wait 13 years for? 3 stages and a reskin. And I hate when people throw that criticism out. I hated when people compared Forces to Adventure because of the story trailer, because that is the mixed message that we get. And I can't, but the other side of that is I cannot look at every Sonic fan and go, you need to be giving them an essay. Like you can't just say this is good. You need to explain it to them. But I think there is some stuff that needs to be compromised in that you can't just see something announced and go, oh, I've been waiting like 16 years for this, because that tells Sonic Team like, oh man, what we're putting out is good. And then it gets put out and then everyone goes, oh, no, wait, I take it back. That's like the be careful what you wish for. It's like the Wishmaster.
Oh my God.
You wish for something and you go, oh, no, wait a minute. And he goes, oh, too late. You know, and he implements it.
That shadow stage they showed off on the trailer for the first time was the worst thing I think I've ever seen in a Sonic game.
But people were
you were getting so much flack for it.
It's the most disgustingly lazy level design I've ever. I hate it because it's just like blocks in the air going left and right and left and. Oh my God!
I want to touch on that because this goes back to the execution and not listening properly. When they advertised Forces, they used from the team that brought you Sonic Colors and Sonic Generations.
Yep.
Now we know that Generations, consensus-wise, obviously it's an opinion, had far superior level design, but Colors had the originality, right? So we're assuming that when they say that, they're gonna give us the fresh level themes of Colors, like the originality, and the level design inspiration from Generations.
Yeah.
But instead, they go, oh, people like Colors and Gens, we'll just put that there, and what we'll do is we'll take the blocky level design from Colors, then we'll take the unoriginality and the classic Sonic and Generations, and it's from the team that brought you Colors and Generations. Took the elements that you like.
And what didn't
Premy,
help with that?
I got one for you, Premy. Because marketing is very silly, and I definitely want to like touch on that side of it too with TWIP on that one, because I know me and TWIP share some similar and then some different stuff. What was one of the things they waited to announce in Forces?
A custom hero.
Custom hero?
No, that Nakamura was involved. Because it's better to say from the people that brought you Colors and Generations than from the people that brought you 06 and Lost World.
And I think the thing that made it even worse is that the first trailer structure was exactly the same as Sonic Generations.
Yeah,
so
but I could write an essay.
Gens, yeah.
I could write an essay about why Forces is bad outside of its game, because I do agree with a lot of people that the marketing is very false. that they did
all those
that they did
things.
see people freaking out about adventure. That goes back to like Watch What You Say, that they saw people freaking out about adventure. So naturally they're talking about Shadow being a bad guy again, which we all know how that turned out. And Chaos being a bad guy in it, and we all definitely saw how that turned out.
Another cutscene.
It was definitely so how that turned out.
He didn't even have a model in the game.
Let me kind of just snap back to our topic at hand here, because we've gone on for about an hour so far, and we only went through my points. So this is gonna definitely either I don't want to make more parts out of this. This is probably gonna be a really long part, but. TWIP, is there any points that you really want to bring up based off the 3 parts we did?
Yes, and it has to do with the social media presence of Sonic.
Oh, please, let's go. Let's do it.
Oh, I can't wait for this. I was waiting for this
one. What is it?
Okay, so whenever I'm critiquing the social media, the memes, blah, 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 people are probably assuming that I'm trying to critique Aaron Webber.
Why do you hate Aaron Webber like Sam Hates Adventure?
When really, I'm
not.
I hate you. And it's obviously Sega, the higher-ups, who are having influence on it. I think both parties are... that's who I'm critiquing, both parties, because Aaron Webber came back 2015, I think, and I'm confident he brought on the idea of the meme material, starting with Sonic being Fire and Ice. They push it forwards, the social media things blew up, they continue with it. Fantastic. That is absolutely great. And then I reckon it's Sega higher up telling them now, continue doing that, it's working, do it. And I think my issue is just that they don't balance the memes and the actual source material, the actual
and I agree that is a problem. I agree with you.
I'm not asking for reveal new games. I'm just talking about let's say the Sonic at the Olympic Games thing is coming up. They barely mentioned it on the main Sonic Twitter, ever. I think they mentioned it the day it was revealed and the day it was released. They barely mentioned it after that. It was the Sega.
And I saw your new video, TWIP, and I do agree with you on that.
TWIP, I left a very nice comment on the video.
Shut up, Prem. Oh my god.
The Patience Defense Squad and all their concerns.
Shut the fuck up. Let Sam talk.
I was just saying that I do agree with you that that there is a huge problem with marketing, especially recently, where even TSR like. That game, honestly, their games could be good, but their marketing is bad, and it goes beyond Aaron Webber and the social media team. It really comes down to allowing them to make the post they need to hype people properly, but they're
how much time they are allowed and what they are allowed to talk about.
And I wish, and honestly, I'll ask this question: do you guys know who we can what is the best way to voice our concerns on that? Who is the best to go to for that? Because I feel like these are people that we don't know, and that, is that just straight up corporate? Is that
I can't tell them. What are we gonna do?
So that's a difficult thing. You will never know. You will hardly ever know who pulls strings in corporate, and it's because it's so far disconnected, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah, the only thing you can do, Aaron, and the only way you can.
Yeah, the only way you can do is you go into the thread. And you get excited, but I wish this would come out. This is haha funny, but oh man, when's this? You start asking questions.
And that's why I made my video yesterday. That was the whole point. I was trying to reach out.
I've talked about that before. The one thing that you shouldn't do is meme back. When you meme back at it, that's telling you that you're 100% committed or you don't care.
I think I've memed back a few times.
Oh yeah, you've definitely memed back.
Oh my god,
the big coach.
But I also am kind of biased to that, where I'm social media is not their fault. Aaron changed the way that works. Aaron, in my opinion, it's a two-way street, but Aaron was pushing the Twitter as much as he could to see what he could do, and it worked. And Sonic has always been relevant from a design standpoint, but he made it more relevant than it was. And it's a two-way street. Of course, you get a bunch of mean kids and blah blah blah, but in the end, he put it back into the public eye, whether people like it or not in the way he did it.
Yeah,
Something worth noting.
Something
worth noting in this moment, in this current moment, at this time of recording, Pokemon and the Sonic Twitter have the exact same amount of followers. Yeah, but it won't last much longer. It won't last much longer.
Oh, I hope Sonic beats out Pokemon. Fuck Pokemon.
But speaking of stats, the Sonic YouTube is about to hit 1 million subscribers. So
yeah. But at the same time, when something seems, that's a big thing. I always have to stress, when something seems like they can just do it. There is a obstacle course of like legalities and a process and everything that they have to do.
Can I actually talk about like how like just I don't know if this is like just a company thing, because I feel like Sega is super strict on what their own employees can say, because even during the Sonic official live stream we had recently, they couldn't say Sega Shop, and I was so confused why they could not say Sega Shop. They were just they were hesitant on saying Sega Shop.
Let's be real here. If Sega was the greatest company to work for, all the Unleashed Generations developers would still be there. The guy who helped create Sonic would still be there. It's clearly a problem
when you offer a worker more money, like.
Yeah, but I think it's more than money. I think it's like an environment thing. There must be a problem working there that they can't sort out.
Oh, Jesus Christ, Evan, you're right.
Like, even with the whole like Ryan Drummond and the union thing that was happening around Generations.
I just think with a lot of that there are stipulations. And that last stream, Mike even said when he talked about it, he goes, well, I don't know much more beyond the Sega Shop, but so he almost alluded to some of the items appearing on other stores, but didn't go further to say it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's all about viability of the announcement. Will they catch all the people? What else is being announced around that? Who else is announcing what? What's going on in the world? I know people don't like the pandemic thing getting thrown in there, but that also plays a massive factor. And like, if they were going to show a trailer, regardless of Aaron saying it was happening or not, is it viable to just throw it out on the internet? What if they threw it out on the internet and then we had The Last of Us 2 announced? Nintendo started announcing all of their stuff. Animal Crossing had just come out and Doom had just come out, because even though they announced it, they had finished games. Then suddenly this massive teaser that they had gets lost in the message. And then people are like, well, you just announced a teaser and all these people announced this. Like, where's this and this and this? And it's gone. It's lost its effectiveness. So there is this thing where where Sega holds back and tells the social media team, like, you need to just keep doing what you're doing with what you got, but we can't go further with this or this or this until like something happens and makes it viable.
No,
and it's frustrating on the PR team.
No, but that's fair to an extent, because you don't just want to reveal something very early on and then just be dead silent for months and months on straight, which is also
that's what happened with Forces. If you guys remember,
they were going to maybe announce a party, or maybe there was a teaser, but the pandemic happened and suddenly everybody was dispersed and worried about that. So let's not release a teaser during that time because nobody's interested in that right now. And then they were like, oh, well, maybe we'll do this. But Nintendo's starting to release stuff, and like the Animal Crossing and Doom just came out. So people are going to be like focused on that. So let's wait on that. And then like, oh, so maybe there is a big event that is coming up and maybe we'll see something at that. And they're just waiting because that event said, hey, like, you got any teasers? We want to show it at our event because 1 million people are going to watch it. And then they go, okay, maybe that's where we need to do it. And then they're just holding back and they're not saying anything. And I know people can hint, and I know people can release a date, but at the same time too, is it viable? Is it guaranteed that we're going to do that? Like we'll just make it a surprise.
TWIP, do you have another point to bring up from the past 4 parts or 3 parts?
Yeah, I feel like that's pretty much it, other than like, if I was too harsh, I was not trying to be.
I got
he's
one.
Naturally a dick. He's naturally a dick. You have to.
I've got one on TWIP. I've got one to support you and I got one against you, and I want David to chime in on this too. One of the parts and part 1, I think it was, where you talked about Adventure. You said Adventure's story aged poorly.
Yeah, you were wrong.
In terms of how it was presented in game, not the story itself.
Oh, you mean the animations in the cutscene?
Yes, and it makes it unbearable to watch. That is what I said.
Well, I mean,
and I still stand by that.
that made old
Close
games.
your eyes, dude.
Close my-
I mean,
just have the Alfred Hitchcock approach. Just close your eyes and like.
It's your eyes that are flawed. Okay.
Right. I mean,
Your eyes are aged.
I actually want David to talk about the adventure story, because David is the writer for Big's Big Fishing Adventure 3.
oh yeah,
I played that.
That's
on my
not
channel.
cancelled yet.
no, it's still coming.
But it's coming eventually. But I want David to talk about the presentation of that story.
Yeah, right. Well, but yeah. So I mean, I've done a lot of thinking about Sonic the Hedgehog and storytelling, because I mean, I do like to think of myself as a writer, even if sometimes I don't write. But I don't know, when it comes to like the Sonic the Hedgehog story, Sonic Adventure, in terms of like full cutscenes, 3D, like here's presenting the story, I still think it is one of the most, if not the most effective stories presented in the world of Sonic the Hedgehog. And before this call started, I was going in a little bit, because it not just tells a story about here's Sonic, it does expand and show his world, like the world in which he exists. And I don't just mean we get to see Tails or running around in a hub world. Like, I think because in previous games we have seen Sonic and who's surrounding him, and we do get that in Adventure 2. We have Sonic and Tails, Knuckles and Amy, and they are hovering around him, and they are doing their own things, and it's all very like it is important what they're doing there. And then we also then do get the flip side with E102 and Eggman, and like diving into themes that might not be appropriate to just place on Sonic, because Sonic is a very specific character. He is fully formed, but he's not going to change a whole lot. But then they did this thing, which was brilliant, even if they didn't realize what they did, and that was Big the Cat. And I'm not just saying that because OBBFA3. Big the Cat is the only character that we've really seen and gotten to play as who is the everyman of the Sonic the Hedgehog universe. Sonic is off having adventures. He's running cool. His friends are off having adventures too. They're all doing that stuff. Amy is so focused on what Sonic is. Like, there's all that there. And then we get into the dark side with Eggman, but we don't really get to see just the people standing around who exist in Sonic's world. They have a different point of view than everything else. Big is simple. He's a simple person. He is just, like I say, he is the everyman. His story is also, charming in that it is about loyalty, and it is about friendship, and that is stuff that also ties into the greater Sonic narrative and the greater themes of what Sonic is. But it's from a perspective that we would never get from Sonic, and we would never get that from Tails. It is an essential component of what Sonic Adventure is, which is here's Sonic, but we're laying it all out on the table. It is the great expanse, and even if some of the animation is funky, even if some of the lines are delivered badly because of, voice directing and the actors or whatever, it'd be more directing than the actors. But like, you have, like, when it's all laid out there, it tells this beautiful story of what Sonic and his world is. And like, if you took Big out, you're missing something. You don't get it. I know people argue about let's get rid of Big, but if they ever remade Adventure, like, oh, why do you need that? But it is important to step back and take it slow, because most people in Sonic's world would step back and take it slow. They are not the speedsters. They are not the adventurers. That's also why, like, the NPCs that are scattered about, they're also important, because you get to see those little windows into how they view Sonic and how they view the world. You're getting multiple points of view, and that makes it a fully formed story, a fully fleshed out world, as opposed to just a very, like, focused, specific, it's just Sonic and we're just following Sonic, and maybe we get little snippets, but it's really just Sonic yelling at robots. Like Sonic Adventure is all of it there. So That's
too long didn't read TWIP is wrong, basically.
Anyway,
I just think with Adventure you don't need cutscenes full of action, because that is one of the few games where you are playing the action parts. You don't need a action cutscene where Sonic has this epic battle with like Chaos Zero, because you play that part. Like you literally play.
But I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind a really stylistic, like awesome ending to a boss. You know,
and I mean,
I like how Unleashed does that sometimes.
Maybe
That's
we can get
cool.
that. Maybe we can get that if there is a remake. And also the Dreamcast cannot process that to a degree, right. And every Dreamcast game will prove that to an extent. The only thing you ever get close to that is like Shenmue with QTEs, but in Sonic's fairness of that, like every confrontation you ever have in that game, you play it, which is more said than a lot of games nowadays.
Yeah,
I've got one thing I want to say about Adventure. I think this thing, I'm not even gonna say this thing aged poorly, because it was a problem from the jump that they have to address this in a remake, and it's so aggravating every time I think about it in the cutscenes. Mm-hmm. When Eggman does some dumb scheme to grab the emeralds from Sonic, Eggman will just have the emeralds floating in the air, just sitting there like, look at these emeralds I've just stolen from you, you imbecile Sonic. You can't do anything about it. And Sonic's just standing there angry. I'm like, you're Sonic. You can grab those emeralds right now, but it's like 20 seconds of cutscene before he gets into chaos.
You don't know what Eggman has up his sleeve. And he has a buddy there with him,
too. Sonic is not like as blindingly fast as he was depicted in cutscenes. Like in Sonic Adventure, they also toned his speed down.
Yeah, but it's like 20 plus seconds of Eggman just
I know
holding the emeralds, just floating by his hand.
That could be attributed to the fact that the Dreamcast.
Yeah, I think it's a technical limitation. But in story-wise, they would improve it.
Sonic is still kind of cocky. In fact, I say Sonic Adventure 1 is the last version of classic Sonic before the change happens.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, Sonic's not going to rush in head first on something, especially now that he saw Chaos. And he doesn't know what Eggman's planning. So he's not going to go rush at Eggman, especially when there are times where Eggman has bested him, like at the casino part where Eggman hits him with gas or whatnot. Like, that's always how it's been.
Yeah,
you don't really know what's going to happen. And even then, he rushed in head first on Unleashed, and guess what happened? He still got trapped at one point. They got to
show that. They got to show, like, either he tries and then Eggman stops him, or Eggman just holds onto the emeralds a bit tighter, because it just feels like, here, they're right here. I'm not even touching them. They're just floating by my hand.
I'm sure they would.
Cases the craftiness of Eggman too, and that even though Eggman lost the fight, he didn't lose the battle. He outthought Sonic in the end.
I'm sure. And by the way, Evan just left, so thank you so much, Evan, for being here. But I will say, since we covered a lot, since we covered what TWIP wanted, we covered a lot. Premy, is there any specific points you want to bring up?
Of course. Okay. All right, so Prem time now. All right. So
been your time the whole fucking time.
Shut up. So
all right.
So here we are. I've got my OneNote open.
Okay.
I just need to say this one, because this one, everyone loves to point to All Reliable when it suits them, and this is what All Reliable is.
All Reliable?
All Reliable is Prem likes Sonic 06, so what does he know? The point that is used to discredit anything they disagree with me on, not the things they agree with me on, because obviously hypocrite.
Wait, what the hell does that have to do with the discussion?
I feel like
I feel
like a lot of people. I feel like a lot of people in the community, not everyone, but a lot of people will take an opinion as a personal attack. I think that's just what it is. I think there's passion. There's passion behind Sonic. Fans are passionate about Sonic, and someone may not understand. Like, I don't understand why Premy likes 06. I don't understand why TWIP likes Forces. I don't understand why Shannon prefers Game Gear games over the mainline games. Like, I don't understand why Sam hates Adventure. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff out there.
I don't understand that either.
And it's like, it doesn't. I don't know. This game is popular. How come he doesn't like this game? And it's just one of those. It's just one of those things. And people will use it to discredit others to some degree. And I think it's a personality thing for you. I think people love to hate you.
Well, I think
you're like notorious, like PREM, you know, like
I think
that's a big reference right there.
With me,
for you.
I get the reference. I think that with me, people either love me a lot or hate me a lot. There's no in between. Because the reason why the fan base I think is toxic is because people have a hard time being amicable with those they disagree with. It's like if you like the adventure era, you're in a certain group.
I think calling the entire fan base toxic is a bad.
Yeah,
I didn't say the entire fan base. I'm just saying that there's a lot of
people. I think it's
more. It's more than we give credit for.
A few people with loud voices.
Let's do it like this. So here's the compromise. I think it's sections of the community that do that.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But there's always something good out of a game. There is always something good. I even say, as much as I hate Lost World, Parkour was such a great idea, in my opinion. It just wasn't the game that it needed to be for. 06 had a really ambitious like throwout, and I think there was something there with the story and something there with the characters. I just think its implementation and like the unfortunate events around it were just not good for it.
I mean,
there's also something else I want to say is that people called me a contrarian, which I think is the most annoying thing, because it's like, because you have these unpopular opinions, like because I'm not the biggest fan of Cars or because I like 06, that somehow I'm only doing it to be different, as if I don't like games like
I think the contrarian
generations.
I think the contrarian thing is it comes from your social media presence. I think.
Oh yeah.
I think when you tweet things and you go, oh man, classic Sonic. I think it's the way it's presented, and then they go, "Oh no, Premi's here."
Well, I don't think disliking the overuse of classic Sonic makes me a contrarian. That's actually a very common theme right now.
I know.
It's not that you don't like it; it's how you portray it. I think it's the
way you say it.
Yeah,
that gets people going.
Yeah,
right. I mean, I'm a person. Yeah. I have personality.
Yeah.
I can't be completely just blank and logical. This is the 355th time they mentioned.
Okay, no, and that's fine. Just you've got to take it if you're giving it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not giving it to people though. I'm criticizing Sonic. I'm not insulting others for liking colors or whatever.
Here's my thing.
What you're saying people do to you.
Let me.
I'm criticizing Sega as a company who wants to spend all my money on them, not as an angry person who just dislikes me because I have different opinions. I don't hate Sega.
Let me go back.
It's always going to be Sega guys. It's always going to be kids that do it, because there is something about Sonic and the IP and how things around it react, be it people, be it other properties, and there's no greater fan base than the Sonic fan base, and how passionate people are. There is more passion in the Sonic fan base than any other fan base. People can fight me over that opinion, but I mean, there's more talent. This community has went on and brought more people into the official industry. This community has produced probably produced the most fan art of an IP. This community is probably one of the most diverse communities that is ever out there, for better or for worse. I always have to say that. Toxicity revolves around the individual and revolves around the individual and the people that follow the individual. Not you, but I'm just saying that there are groups of people that hate Sonic tubers. There are groups of people that like this game but cannot stand people that like this game. There are people who cannot stand the classics or the people that revolve around it.
I mean, I get that all the time, where people put me, and I'm not like trying to call anyone out or calling you guys out in the call, but like people were like, oh, you're just another Sonic tuber that likes to clickbait this, that, 10 minute in 1 second. And I'm like, I don't do that. You're just putting me in a boat.
Hell, we used to write TWIP for that.
And TWIP changed. No, and TWIP got better. And like, but again, there's like this stigma around that name, Sonic Tubers, where I just get put in this category.
They think we do it for money. Like, we're not balling off of this shit. We're not balling off of Sonic video.
But what it is, what I wanted to bring that back to was like what Shanny says is social media presence, and how you're conveying your points in social media, and it could paint the picture of you as a person. People shouldn't do that, but we're only human and people.
Let me paint the picture for you, because I am outside looking in. on stuff like that. I try to follow everybody just to kind of see what they're saying. And I've talked to TWIP about it before too. There is this really strange thing. I remember years ago, we had 3 people from the Sonic Tuber community, and what was the big question they asked? They, in classic fashion, they went, "What is the deal with all the Sonic Tuber hate?" Outside looking in, I saw people who threw out opinions and couldn't handle the backlash, so they felt like they had to push back, and they were pushing back at everyone instead of the individual opinion. And I still see that. So like to this day, less than more, I saw TWIP criticizing the community because of 5 comments. I saw Premy pushing back because of maybe a section that said lol 06 blah. I saw Cisco pushing back because he made an opinion. And not one time did anybody push back at the opinion and say, well, let me tell you why. I saw this community is toxic. This community doesn't know anything. This community just doesn't get it. I never saw the explanation. I just saw, I don't understand. I just slapped you, but you're slapping back. And there's an adaptation. It was like years ago. It was when like Cisco and Gamer Guide started the Sonic, like why are Sonic Tubers getting so much hate?
Yeah, they'll make videos on us like.
I don't think the community's came through. I really like that.
No. It's just a massively vocal community. That's like one of the things that just comes with it. But there's never the explanation of why I like this, why I think this is good. This other stuff is good, but this is why I like this. There's always a complaint on the community, but there's a form of adaptation that you should put out because you have a platform. And this is what I'm like this with official people too. I'm super stickler with that, especially since like I helped run SFGHQ. I am massive stickler on the image that it puts out. And it's adaptation of what's going on in the world, or the person that you're talking to in front of you, what they perceive as good. I always try to find out what the person in front of me or the group in front of me likes, and I try to hit those points first because I know that'll ease them up, and then I go into mine.
Yeah, I want to touch
never
on that,
devalidate, because even though people are devalidating you, don't ever devalidate it back. Ignore it, but don't devalidate it, because that hurts the outcry.
I want to touch on that because I don't feel like I've ever personally judged people for whatever their Sonic opinions are, because a lot of people try and act like I'm the only one with
we've talked to DMs before, and you've been nothing but like awesome.
Yeah, like I feel like aside from like the classic games, maybe Adventure 1 and 2, maybe Mania, there's very few critically acclaimed Sonic games, which probably means that there are people who like ones that are not acclaimed, right? We all have some unpopular opinions. I made a video.
Oh, absolutely.
I made a video called Why I Love Sonic 06, which is the highest viewed positive.
Yeah, you say this every time.
I have a follow-up. Shut up. I have a follow-up.
This is
I have a follow-up. I have a follow-up. First of all, I said in this video, and I elaborated in another video. The video is called, I think you should check out, The Subjectivity of Objectivity. And I try and explain, like, fun is a perception. It's created by the person playing, and there's certain things that cannot fully be explained when you say you have fun playing a game. There's all other things that you can try and describe. Like, I can say I like the longer levels in Heroes, or I can say I like the switches or the combat or whatever, but why do I like it? Well, it's fun. It's a feeling, you know? So I feel like for people to act like I'm judging them for having different opinions to me, I don't think it's fair, because I don't do that. Even if I have those opinions, I'm not going to judge the people, you know? It's just, I feel like it's all misconstrued, you know?
Yeah.
Because people tie their identities to what they like and dislike.
On social media, it's all text. So it's very hard to understand when somebody is being sarcastic and somebody is being serious. That happens.
Comment I left on TWIP's video.
But yeah, like it's a thing. I think it's a vicious cycle where at one point everyone felt the need to push back, and then that person pushes back at them, and it becomes this weird defensive battle. from the outside looking in.
Like right now, the Nation's Defense Squad, like they're really mad at me because I want to see information. I don't want them to rush the game. I just want to see something. I don't think I'm being a bad fan or I'm bad for the franchise.
And an outside looking in, it just doesn't come off that way. It does look like you're a little bit bitter and you were a little bit mad. I'm definitely bitter. I don't hide that. Well, at least you admit it.
Because right. I was like 16 when Generations came out. I think at that point there was not a bitter bone in my body. The only game at that point that I wasn't a fan of was Colors. It's one out of a whole childhood of Sonic.
I was the same way. I walked away from it. I walked away from it in Heroes, never touched the Sonic game. I played them at friends' houses, but never bought a single game until Generations came back out. So I took the time to understand. That was my big thing. Was I don't understand why they're not making the game I want. I don't understand why this is the way it is. Why can't they do this? So then I started learning about it, and I think my biggest turning point was when I met Izuka. And that short conversation, because I used to blame Izuka for a bunch of stuff too, and then that short conversation, I was just like, I get it. Like, you want to do it, but there's powers above that are keeping you from doing it. And then I started learning about it.
I want to touch on a few other things as well. Someone brought up Persona in the comments as well when we're talking about IPs and Sega, and I forgot that Persona was owned by Sega because I was saying like Yakuza's their
they bought Atlas. I love Sega stuff. Let's go.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say that this actually proves my point, because when we were going through the whole Sonic Team and Sega thing, and Sonic Team was getting absolved of everything at that point, especially in some of the comments, it's like if Persona is under Sega and they are thriving with the same corporate Sega, at what point do we have to give Sonic Team some flack and say that they're doing something wrong?
Do you want me to tell you a funny thing? The thing I
was explaining back then was that from my point of view, it seemed to me that corporate doesn't view Sonic as being able to print as much money as their other anymore. It used to be, but now Yakuza and Persona are doing just as well, if not better, than what Sonic was doing for Sega. It wasn't until that I think this movie probably gave him a wake-up call that you should put more time into Sonic because he can print money. But that actually jumps into my point of view on that, because a lot of people were telling me, why do I keep saying corporate this, corporate that, and not Sonic Team? Well, the reason why is because, and again, I, like we mentioned, budget doesn't make the game. I think they can still make a good game with a low budget. But I still believe that Sega is not giving Sonic Team the budget they used to have, because they don't see Sonic as being as viable as their other IPs.
But they also have to prove that they can do
Rocky.
Yeah. They also have to be able to prove that they can do something with the budget they're given, because the higher ups didn't ruin Mania. If you look at some of the most critically acclaimed games in the series, they took 2 years of development. Adventure 2, Sonic 3 and Knuckles, which came out the same year, 2 years after Sonic 2, which is a different team from
but I guarantee you at the time
I'm going to get bold and reach on Mania. The way I view that one is the same way that I view Symphony of the Night, because it almost has like a similar effect. Because the whole backstory to that is when Symphony of the Night, which is the Castlevania that sets the direction for the other Castlevanias we're going, 64 just came in. 3D was the push, and Castlevania 64 was being developed by Konami while there was a sister project, which was Symphony of the Night. The higher ups were pushing Castlevania 64, so all attention was on the 64 game, and they were lambasting Symphony of the Night and talking trash about that game. And all the game magazines were pushing 64 and trashing Symphony of the Night. And look which one was the masterpiece. Mania is a sister project. Mania was pushed by Christian, and I think he said it on Retro. He pitched it. It wasn't something Sega asked them to do. It was pitched by Christian, because Christian did Christian's done Sonic CD and everything, so this is a returning person. And Sega and then like Izuka saw it, because I think what it was a 4-stage game, and then Izuka was like, this is great. And then they put it in, and then Sega probably went in there and said, okay, you can do it. but you have this a lot of time and this amount of budget because they're focused on Forces,
Right.
like at the time,
Thinking that was going to be the hit.
Well, because Forces is their spotlight project. That's the next Sonic game.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it was Surprise. So, small budget, small time. They say, okay, we'll let you make it into a whole game. They take they look at what they can do and they go, okay, we're going to bring all these stages in because that's going to help us. Because that's the thing. They probably didn't have enough time to make a full game, which is a good thing that they use reuse stages, because now that it's done so well, there's more trust. So if like Evening Star, which is their company now, ever wanted to pitch another Sega game, they would probably have a bigger budget, bigger thing. But I want to say that there's, to an extent, less mismanagement of that and less corporate into that, because they are all on Forces at the time.
Yeah.
Needless to say that we did see meddling towards the end of that, and Weber was the one that points that out, like later on.
Talking about how they added the DRM and
DRM.
whole, like Mania Plus.
Yeah, and that Mania Plus was one thing. DRM was the one I was talking about. Yeah, David.
I mean, heck,
Oh no, he's roboting.
Yeah, he's roboting.
I got you.
Hold on. I don't. Am I any better now? Okay.
You good?
Yeah. Okay. So the idea of the sister project, even though it wasn't in the same extreme of like Forces and Mania, you could maybe even stretch it all the way back to Sonic 2 and Sonic CD, in the sense that corporate just descended on STI and said, you need to make Sonic 2, because originally they assumed they would make Sonic 2. Sega said no, so they started working on a completely different non-Sonic game. Then Sega went, JK, please make Sonic 2. So suddenly, they have to make a game in less than a year, and it's a minor miracle that game is as good as it is, because they lost like at least 2 months of development time working on something else completely. But Sonic CD was able to just kind of simmer and be its own thing. Like, even Oshima has said in interviews that they did not have the same pressure on them from Sega as the Sonic 2 team did, because Sonic 2 was the spotlight, Sonic 2 was the focus. And it's
fair as well.
Yeah, and if you look, Sonic 2 looked like it was supposed to be more than what it was released.
Yeah, I mean, everything about Sonic 2's development points that there should have been more levels, and it should have had a completely different structure, the time travel stuff. But it is a thing where that has happened with Sega before. And so CD, because it had more freedom, was able to do different things. And you can argue how effective it was, because, I wouldn't say CD's the best. I don't think it's the worst Sonic game, but you can argue how effective is the time travel mechanic, how effective is the level design. But they were able to experiment with the exploration and experiment with the trappings of a Sonic game in a way that Sonic 2 never would have been able to, because Sonic 2 was the corporate focus. So it just like with Forces, all eyes are on that. Mania is able to play around with things that Forces never would have been able to, because of that same sort of dynamic.
Yeah, so, I mean, I believe something that they just gave it stipulations and left it at that.
Yeah, like it's something that I guess has existed to a degree, even in Sega's corporate culture, since the early conception of what Sonic the Hedgehog is. So.
Yeah, it just seems like I fully understand all of that and the whole corporate thing. It just also feels like, given even something like Colors, which was well received, which came out in 2010 and started development in like 2009, you'd think that people would understand by now that, yes, more time does matter, but you have to be able to prove, because, for example, let's say we were having this 4-year drought after Generations. Generations was well received. It was a very short game. People would have wanted something like that, but maybe longer, more fleshed out. If they said they were taking more time to develop games after Generations, we would be like, okay, you want to take 4 years? Cool. Like, you gave us Gens, I'll just give us something like that, but bigger, But because it came after Forces, it feels more like you haven't even gotten down the use your time well part, let alone give us more time, So it kind of felt a bit like, we're waiting, but we don't even know what we're waiting for. We don't believe that we're waiting for something good. Trust me, it'll be good, but how do we trust that when you haven't proven to us that you could do something in 4 years? Now you want us to wait another 4. It's like, you only live once,
Yeah, it's a vicious cycle that they're in right now where they want to do one thing, but they probably can't do it because of a few issues in the past, and people want this, but they're not able to get this, which doesn't give them much faith in it. And so now it becomes this thing where they're trying to find the thing, the thing that's going to turn everybody's opinion around, but they're doing it with what they can work with, if that makes sense. It's just it's a difficult thing to point at.
Yeah. Now, real quick, because I feel like we've gone on way longer.
Wait, I got one more point.
Yeah. Please go. I just want to make sure if you have more points than to go on.
Yeah, it's the last
and
one.
I'm good with time too. And I want to address something you said with the Persona and Yakuza about corporate.
Wait, and you also had something about marketing, right, Shani?
Yeah.
That you never got to touch on?
No, I was just gonna say I agree with you on some things. Is that Sega's marketing for some games is very cheap, and I agree that TSR was a very one and done game. So it was put out there and then just kind of ditched. I think that you're going to see more marketing for the mobile version of the game because casual gaming and mobile gaming has already proven to be a massive market that's successful. So
that's gonna tie into
TSR has already came and gone. Its prime went and it's out of here. But there's potential in the mobile game that they feel like they can rope people in with, and they'll push that one a little longer because people are playing it. You know what I mean? I think that's why you're still seeing stuff with forces and speed battle, but and all that. I hate that they rebranded it the forces. So when you look it up,
it makes sense though because they made a game and it didn't get well received. And a mobile game, people remember. Let's push that one. The big issue with the drought is that there's nothing else coming out.
That's my point. Look, let me get to it. Okay, let me get to it because some people were saying I was bad for Sonic because I was praising the 2000s for having more frequent releases, which I think is fucking stupid because you can have more frequent releases without stressing Sonic Team because we had Dimps, we had Now Digital, we had Backbone Entertainment, all these teams that were doing, we're keeping Sonic going when Sonic Team were working on their main game, aka dropping the ball with certain games. And it's when Shadow came out, we got Rush. When 06 came out, we got Riders. When Secret Rings came out, we got Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games, which was actually developed by Sega. But that did not hurt Sonic, And now, because handhelds are not really a thing, I consider the Switch a home console. It's now you don't get those amazing handheld experiences. You get a phone game, which is nowhere near as cool as a dedicated handheld title like Rush.
Which is why I don't understand. They could easily develop Switch-only games because the budgets for the games now, they're still $40, which is...
Yeah, but the problem is if they develop the Switch-only game, they'll just go, why not just port it to everything? At that point, it's not really... I don't think
it would just be on the Switch.
Yeah, but I don't think the solution is a Switch-only game. The solution is... Well, realistically, I think Pillars is a solution. How you have Paper Mario, and you have 3D Mario, and you have 2D Mario, and they're all their own dedicated things. We should have that,
Mobile marketing is a very just powerful thing because it's very accessible. And everyone is playing that.
Plus, Prem, you forgot to remember, if they're only developing for Switch, that's less resources to having to port it to every console. They only have to worry about one platform.
Developing the game is the bulk of the work. The porting it is less of work than the actual game.
But it's still
so you're telling me that if they made a really acclaimed game that was a side project,
they'd port it later on, but not straight away.
Yeah.
Oh, you
porting is still time and money.
Yeah.
And a budget.
Either way, the fact that
takes a lot of money to do.
My point was that they should experiment more with Pillars because the only thing that hurts Sonic right now is that their games are not carrying the series, and we don't have those side things to fall back on. Team Sonic Racing, or should I say Team Offline Racing, they didn't even promote it that well, and I'm not going to get into how I feel about the game because that's a whole different thing. But right now, it's even the bare minimum. You're not porting your back catalog. to current systems. Like, you're telling me I can't even play Adventure 1, 2 Heroes on the Switch, which could be emulated. You don't have to do a full port.
Yeah, that is something that does bizarre me. That would be very easy money. And
again,
that is Sega Europe.
Again, right there, like you just said, I don't understand that. That seems like easy money.
Yeah.
There's always a reason behind stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it may just not be viable for them to just randomly port their backlog onto the Switch.
Why not?
We don't know, because there's no emulator that we know of that's officially put on the Switch yet. So they couldn't just be like, oh, here's our GameCube stuff, go put it like on there. We also don't know, like the Unleashed thing, we don't know if they have the source code or not. So what would that entail to try to release that game?
I mean,
like onto.
I would appreciate the honesty if that's the case. Then, if they really have lost the Unleashed source code, they should just go.
Why in a series of stuff when Sonic is in, not really in a rocky period, but why would they look at our social media and see people losing faith in Sonic? Why would they go on there and just be like, "Yeah, you're never going to see these games. You're never going to see them."
We lost the source code because we're fucking shit.
That's their fault for losing the source code. Then that's their fault for losing the. They shouldn't have lost it in the first place. If that's the case, which I don't think they did.
If you were a multi-million-dollar business and you had an item that was rocky and people were losing faith, do you think it's lucrative for them to just come out and say, you're never going to see any of this stuff because
what they would have done if there was, say, demand for an Unleashed port. Let's just assume in this scenario that the demand is great, because obviously I can't measure it personally. I can just see people. Yeah, so let's assume the demand is great. If they had realistically lost the source code but they knew the demand was great, they should consider emulation. I think if they want to save face,
that's right.
First of all, they should have been competent enough to not.
Can I tell you something? They've done it.
Xbox One, baby.
They've already done it. Xbox One.
That was different. Even if it is emulation, my point is that was done by Xbox. They just wait for Xbox to do the grunt work and just slap it on there. It's not on PC because they don't want to put in any work. You know, I just feel like
they don't want to dump money into a port
or the money to put it on Steam.
See, here's
because they would have to. If they don't have the game, then that's an issue. Because
then explain this one.
What they have to do is they have to take the game. They'd have to make
their own emulator.
They would have to dedicate the team.
Yeah,
fixing that game to work on a PC,
and that's why I've always
explain this. Explain
it would cost them a lot of money.
That's like the Switch. They don't have a viable emulator for it.
Explain this one. Why isn't Heroes, which has a PC port, not been put on Steam? If the port is already there.
Okay, can I be honest here, Prem? Because Sega also does pay attention to reviews and in the general public, those Heroes did sell well when it originally released, and me and you are fans of Heroes. Even then, I think they think that like Heroes is something that they probably
if they were fine with putting Unleashed, which has similar if not worse reception, probably worse reception than Heroes. If they were fine with putting that on Xbox One X, why wouldn't they take their already existing Heroes PC port and just put it on Steam?
Because they didn't have to do a lot for those, and Xbox and PlayStation probably paid them for the ability to put their games on that system.
Yeah, exactly.
So they probably made a little bit of money on the side for that. They would have to bring in a team to get Heroes up and running on like newer OSs, newer hardware.
And I get what you mean, Prem, because the game was already on PC.
Works.
I get what you mean because the game was already on PC. You would think
I'm running it right now. I've got one file, file that keeps it running.
They still have to pay to put it on Steam.
Yeah,
it just feels like there's a lot of obstacles and never any solutions for those obstacles. Like
I don't think Heroes. I don't think in the scheme of things, Heroes was a viable source for PC. I think it did better on consoles than it did on PC, so they would be more apt to hold back and release it on consoles.
Oh shit, Shady, what?
When they do it,
Yeah, it's the adventure games that confuse me specifically for putting on Switch, because Dreamcast games should be very easy to emulate, so it shouldn't really be that much work.
Yeah, I agree. The adventure games should be on Switch. They should.
The rules of an emulator is that your hardware should be 3 times as powerful as the system itself in order to emulate. I think that's the rule of the emulator, but I'm not really knowledgeable on the mechanics of emulation.
But
I don't know. I don't know why they didn't put it on the Switch. Maybe they just think maybe there is something out in the future that's going to lead the.
I mean, I'm going to be honest here, Prem. I'm going to be honest because you mentioned adventure. If they do that Sacred Adventure remake that we all think is going to happen, I'm sure they're probably going to pour over the old games to Switch at that point to get people hyped for it.
I could see them doing it. I could also see. I want to know how good the PC ports did, because if they didn't do what they expected, I think that may have held back.
I believe that when Lost World got a port, and because it's Lost World, maybe enough people didn't buy it, and they think, oh, people don't want Sonic PC ports. They have the ability and the resources to do it if they want to, but someone or people there do not believe that it will be financially viable, and as a result, they're ignoring it. Like, we don't have Mania on phones. Critically acclaimed game, not hard to run game, but they don't want to put in the effort to put it on mobile devices. You know, I feel like there's some element of either they don't believe it's gonna sell or just laziness, because Yakuza's getting ports. You know, like
laziness. It's always time and money.
Speaking of which, I actually
management.
Speaking of which, I had during the AMA with Ivo, he answered my question, like why.
Oh, he answered mine as well.
Yeah, like, why aren't you guys porting the Christian Whitehead port to Sonic 1 and 2? Like, fans want that, and I don't remember exactly his response, but it sounded like he didn't know fans wanted those ports. And it's like
it's not like, I mean, people say it, but
I wonder if they didn't do that too because you had the Sega Ages version coming out with and they didn't want it to compete.
But I made it apparent, like the phone ports are the superior ports.
Maybe they just don't want to pay.
I want to put this out, and I want to put this out too. Did Sega ask Christian to do those, or did Christian pitch them?
That is okay. Christian.
I think it was a pitch. Yeah,
I think he probably pitched the first one, then it continued from there.
Yeah,
that's what I would ask Christian. Did Sega ask you to do the Whitehead port of this game, or did you pitch? Because he pitched Sonic CD.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he pitched Mania.
Yep.
Well, he pitched Discovery, then Iizuka fought for it to become Mania. So I wonder if the other one is something that he either pitched or they asked for. I could see them not doing a 2 for consoles because we just got the Ages port for the Switch. And then we have like the Steam versions, and we have like these other versions that have showed up on the consoles, and either they think that's okay, we'll do that because that's true to form, or we don't want it to compete and cause confusion where people are going to buy this thinking it's Christians and then get upset because they just bought the original one instead.
Yeah, with the Steam version, Sonic 3 is on there with the original music and shit. Like, is that illegal?
David can explain that one a little bit better. So, David,
what the PC thing or
Sonic 3 and Knuckles, the music
Sonic
fiasco, and why the Steam version still has the original music and it's still up.
I mean, because there's a bit of speculation. I believe, because I was looking at this the other day, because I was trying to remember exactly when the Steam version was released. Because I know on the Steam page it lists 2011, but I was almost certain it was earlier. And I don't know if the date was changed because they restructured how all the Genesis ROMs even work on there. But
the virtual room thing, I think they changed it.
Right, but I guess the idea is, it's on Steam, it came out. Since all signs seem to point to, it's the music, I think it really is tied into when Michael Jackson died, the only version that really came out after he died was the DS version, and that was a couple months later. It most assured, like, I forget when it was announced, but it had to have been worked on before he died, I'm sure, the DS ports. But I think since after he died, and then it was like, oh, did Michael Jackson work on it, or did his team work on it? And with him gone, all these legal doors start opening up. I think Sonic 3 is just sort of frozen, where if they, if they took it down, or if they re-released it with different music, they certain parties could argue that, oh, Sega is aware of the fact that they owe us money and that we haven't been paid, and the fact they re-release it with new music could then give them legal recourse to sue Sega and say, oh, look at this thing, but you've been willingly selling it on Steam since X, at whatever date it came out. And if they just went, oh, we'll just use the old music, it's fine, then, I mean, that it's the same sort of legal issue. But it's like, because it was released before Michael Jackson died, and I'm certain that he would have been the core, like, if he had objected to it, there would have been issues. But he just didn't care, clearly. Like, he got paid, even if he wasn't credited, it's fine. The moment he dies, that changes, because you'll notice that's when they stopped re-releasing it. And I just think changing the music in an updated version, like a Taxman version, still inadvertently opens up legal doors that the Sega would have to address no matter what. And it's easier to just ignore the problem and leave it alone, because clearly whatever legal action may exist, like if Cicero, or however you pronounce his name, has contacted Sega or tried to sue Sega, clearly nothing has moved on that in years. So it's just easier for Sega to pretend it's not happening.
Yeah.
Question concerning the legality of things, because I know we're just talking about ports and whatnot. Is there a legal barrier for them to port things that are not fully Sonic Team, like Dimps, Sonic games, or like Sonic Rivals, or anything that was not a Sonic Team game, but it was developed by another company with the permission of Sega?
See, that I'm not sure. I think it all depends on whatever
Sega
contract they wrote up.
That shit.
Yeah,
it
only
would
Sega
depend
would
on
know.
it would depend on the contract, I believe,
right?
Or like the
Because
deal that was made with the game itself. Who owns what? Does Sega own these things?
Yeah.
Do they own these things? The engine do they still own like the rights to use the engine with that game? Like, there's a lot that goes into.
Right, because something like 3D Blast, Sega clearly and Barrel, even though Traveler's Tales developed the engine and everything, because said a million times, and they have re-released the Genesis version a million times. So clearly, they're perfectly able to do it. I would imagine because they had such a strong relationship with Dimps that there must be something in there to allow re-release, but at the same time, you don't really know it. It could be something as simple as, oh, if you port Sonic Advance to the Switch, now you have to pay Masato Nakamura a whole bunch of money because it uses Sonic 1 music, and that's technically a new release on a different platform.
I swear it's always music they have licensing issues with all the time.
The further you go back into Sega's history, the more you start seeing like legalities with stuff, because they were throwing money at people but not keeping the license to it.
I think the amount of times they used Green Hill, they would have owned it.
The Saturn, you'll see it with the Saturn, you'll see it with the Dreamcast, where like Sega of Japan and all them are just throwing money at problems, or throwing as much money as possible, or giving developers blank checks to go make a game, like, and just leaving it at that, and not taking care to keep the rights to things, or
they were
to keep things legally even.
It allowed for an extreme amount of creativity, but they also were bleeding money, and they weren't thinking about the future, because you're in the moment. You're thinking, okay, how much money are we going to earn this quarter, this year? They're not thinking about, in 30 years, what do we do with this game? Because even like in the Saturn era, they're like re-releases and re-releases from older generations. I mean, it certainly wasn't as common then as it is now. It happened. But it wasn't like it is now. So,
so Prem, is there any other points that you need to cover?
Statements, really. Just like for
I desperately want to when everyone says their thing, I desperately want David to end it on a Sonic historical note.
Let's not. We are literally coming on to 2 hours right now. As much as I love David,
we'll do the quick one.
Oh man. Anyways, Premy.
I've accepted that, you know, the way things are, not everyone's gonna like me in the community. That's cool. I've made peace with that. I feel like as long as you are not positive and optimistic for upcoming games, then you are scum to a lot of people.
You're giving the vocal minority attention when you do shit like that. That is not everyone.
You think that's the minority? I don't think that's the. When I did the Green Hill round for Forces, when they announced Classic Sonic and Green Hill, people were mad at me because it's just one level. This was before there were 4 other Green Hill.
It's because we're in the hardcore fan base. We're in like the core.
Yes, the core. That's where the core of the toxicity is.
I guarantee you that I am anywhere and everywhere in this Sonic community, and I talk to a million people.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's a vocal minority, and it's the way that you press the issue. You're fine. Yeah. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Don't cater to them. Do your thing.
All right, and for those who like me, check out my non-Sonic channel, link in the description.
All right, so one person will check it out, and it will be himself.
All right, and TWIP, anything?
Anything? I guess I've covered a lot of these issues in my newest video. If you want to check that out,
I got the top comment on this video as well.
No, basically, I just have a lot of issues with Sega's management and marketing, but
yeah,
I don't like pinning the blame on any specific person, and I just want the company and the Sonic brand as a whole to get better and be more relevant, be more active, and
totally understandable. And again, I guess closing statements for me. You know, thank you both for being here again.
Hey, thanks for having us, Sam.
He meant me and the others. Not
God, you two just need to get a room and get married already. Jeez, get married. I appreciate Shani.
We're not talking about you.
I appreciate Shani, David the Lurker, being here, and Evan as well, being here earlier.
Yeah,
I cannot believe how long this one part
This one part longer than the one we did last time, the whole thing.
It's getting there. We went on for 2.5 hours last time, but okay,
right,
I might have to be doing. No, I don't know.
Sonic Chats is back, baby.
I don't know if I'm going to be cutting this.
Sonic Chats reborn.
I don't know if I'm going to be cutting this into 2 parts. I might just cut down moments where we strayed a bit too far.
Leave the whole thing in.
I'll figure it out.
Sonic Chats DX.
This full of Final Fantasy. This is part 4, part 1.
Oh man, part 4, episode 1. Got it. Part 4, episode 2. Oh, that'd be hilarious. I'm doing that. Part 4, episode 1, then part 4, episode 2. Okay.
And then there's more episode 3 because it was cancelled.
Episode 3 is Premy. Let's go.
Yeah, don't worry, guys. Episode 3 is coming. I promise it's coming. Anyways, thank you guys for being here. It was fun. Thanks to our moderators. And that's about it. So
one more closing statement. Nat is never coming back. Done.
That's true. I got one more thing. For me personally with SFGHQ, I just want to plug that Sage the Sonic Amateur Game Expo is coming up. It is a mixture of fan games. We're actually pushing for indie stuff too, so there's going to be a lot of indie stuff there as well. That's going to be September 5th to September 12th. So we're going to have that there. So check that out. SFGHQ, Sonic Fan Games at headquarters. You can go online. Check that out. Sage, follow the Twitter. Look up Sage Expo. So yeah, check that out. David, do you got anything you want to say?
Look, I think Sonic, he's pretty cool, but also blue, like the planet. A planet. Our planet? Some planet.
Oh.
Hey, weird. It's weird, right? We almost never got Sonic at one point.
That is true.
You've got to let him say it, Sam.
Continue.
You've got to let David end it with a historical fact. It'll make these two laugh.
I'll be quick. It'll just be a couple minutes.
Right. Check this crap out.
Okay. Because beforehand we were talking a little bit about Sonic history, and you said for all that Sonic's been, technically, like the main 3, Naka, Oshima, Yasuhara, they only worked together on one game, which was the original Sonic the Hedgehog. You know, they Naka and Yasuhara went to the U.S. to make 2, 3, and Knuckles. Oshima hung out in Japan and made CD. Then Naka came back to Japan, and Naka and Oshima worked on Adventure. And then at that point, you know, Oshima left the company, Yasuhara left the company, Naka left the company. So really, Sonic 1 is the only one that exists. But like, yeah, and I was talking about Yasuhara because like he's an important part because Naka made the engine, Oshima designed the characters, but Yasuhara made the game fun because he's the one that designed the levels. If it wasn't for him, if it wasn't for the level design, the way the game functioned as a whole, Sonic may not have succeeded. It could have been a one and done. Like it would have been an Alex Kidd that people, you know, some people liked it, but they forgot about it, and then Sega had to make another mascot. But originally, when they were developing and pitching Sonic, Yasuhara wasn't part of the project. He was already scheduled to go to San Francisco and work at the Sega Technical Institute and lead that group and work with the American developers there. However, his work visa was delayed because of the Gulf War conflict. Like that interrupted a whole bunch of things regarding regarding like moving in that way. So
pandemic going on basically.
So yeah, the reason why Sonic the Hedgehog exists is because of Saddam Hussein.
I want to die inside. Thank you so much.
End it. That's a wrap. Thank you guys for watching.
It's been real. The Remy out.
Amy is never joining one of these ever again.
I knew you'd like that historical fact.
What the fuck?
Oh, that was amazing.
The end.
That's true.
Okay.
That's a true fact. That's a true thing.